This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
So, my buddy James Davies, this is his Suhr Classic. Not an antique, I don't think. Maybe I'll ask him about that. This has got SSV pickups, which I think are their most vintage voiced pickups. Feels like the usual kind of neck, stainless steel frets, humbucker in the bridge, obviously 2-point trem, all of the normal Suhr things. I really am impressed with this. I think Suhr, I guess you'd say, are mass-produced, right? Because they make a lot of guitars, and I think they're quite a large company, relatively. So not boutique anymore, I wouldn't say, but let me know if you disagree with that or whatever. But yeah, they're really consistent. And I think if there was one kind of brand that you can get all over the world that you know would be ready to gig and sort of like pro-level, just quality guitars, I think Suhr for me is the one. And like a Fender custom shop, I don't think it necessarily quite gets there in terms of consistency. The one thing that I've found with some of them is that they tend to be a little bit possibly on the heavier side. But I need to go and weigh this one. But incredibly good playing guitars. They feel super smooth to play and they sound really good. And this is just another example of that. I played a Suhr Mateus Sato in Project Music. Those are lovely guitars as well. Very close to this, really. But yeah, really great guitars from Suhr. Let me know if you've got suggestions for other things which you prefer to these.
So I think there's a question for me on this. Is Suhr a mass-produced guitar at this point? I think their staff is over 80. I've looked at some kind of Suhr factory tour stuff. It looks like this is the kind of, couldn't really say any longer that they're a boutique guitar builder. I think they've transcended that and gone more into like, this is, you know, a proper guitar factory, right? Beautiful guitars, really well made, of course. I think we mostly come to assume that. Fret jobs are generally perfect. Lock-in tuners, really nicely made guitars. Decent electronics that are unfussy, as well as they have their own kind of single coil silent system. And let's just check that out. If I sit near my computer monitors, normally this would be quite a noisy space. sat right up close to the monitors there, and the PC kind of monitor. Hopefully you get some sense that these are not noisy like a normal single coil would be. And I think Suhr do a decent job of that. And that is the sort of thing that could be really useful for live when playing with like noisy kind of lighting rigs and stuff. And also for recording at home, like if you're recording next to a monitor, for me, the single coils get really, really incredibly noisy when you get sort of close to a computer screen. So I have to back way off, like I record about 2 meters away from there, which is where you see this. The one area with Suhr guitars that I kind of wish they'd pay a little bit more attention is in terms of the weight. Now, they do talk about, you know, aged wood and, you know, selecting wood carefully. But this guitar, for example, is about a pound heavier than my K-Line, the blue one. So puts it like in that kind of medium kind of weight. And this is something that I found with quite a few of the Suhrs that I've tried, is that they're generally not very lightweight guitars. And for me, generally, I'd quite like a guitar in sort of 7.5 pound range. I think sort of seems to be like a bit of a sweet spot for a Strat, and it seems to be like a weight that someone like K-Line can get fairly easily, whereas the Suhrs are, especially if you look at like Project Music, they put up the weights, and I think Peach guitars do as well. You can often find that they're creeping up a little bit in weight. That's one area that I think they could pay a little bit closer attention. Equally, Fender Custom Shop stuff and the American Vintage stuff that I've experienced has been also similar in terms of like the weights are starting to creep up. That's one area, but I feel like for me, I can't really think of a manufacturer particularly that builds better guitars. Yes, they are pretty expensive, but if you look at the factory tour, I think you get a sense for kind of what goes into each of these, and I think they're very consistent guitars. The classic stuff that I've played, they are pretty kind of spot on, clinical maybe. Maybe don't have sort of that classic Strat mojo so much, but I think what they do have is a bit more preciseness, bit of a consistent feel, amazing playability, as well as being truly kind of road ready, quiet guitars. I think, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Let me know if you've found a dodgy Suhr, or if you're someone who relies on Suhr. Some of my favourite players, Andy Wood, Wayne Krantz, Scott Henderson, I think, as well, Michael Landau, all of these guys are playing Suhr guitars. Mateus Asato, they've got a good kind of roster of great players. I think Ibanez AZ would be obviously the most obvious choice for kind of borrowing from this kind of design, sort of a modern take on the S-Type. And those are pretty good too, I think. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you around. And yeah, I think 9 to 14 inch radius, stainless frets. This is the non-antique, so poly. I think the antiques aren't really that much different in price from what I can tell. They're about 3,000, both of these types of guitars. Yeah, decent.